And go.
Starting over. Welcome to Live Coding Happy Hour for August 23rd, 2019. I am Dave Slusher. I am joined with my partner, Andrew Barnes. We are both developer advocates. We'll tell you a little bit more in just a second about that. I'm looking at Andrew's face. Do we have audio? Okay.
We are good.
That's great. That is fantastic news. All right. So what we're going to do today, this will be an OAuth show. We'll tell you a little about the situation, but we're taking something that worked and got broke and needs OAuth. So this is kind of almost really truly the prototypical type live coding happy hour show is doing an OAuth thing, which is, we're going to be honest, a little bit fumbly and, it takes a little bit of doing. So this is absolutely a audience participation type show. So if you're watching and chime in the chat. So we should have some kind of formal way of giving people things for correct answers in the chat. So anyway,
that's funny. That would be great. And you're right. It is going to be that kind of show. And it's a very, very real scenario because this is a real,
this really happened this week.
Yesterday.
I think they used to sync, stopped syncing. Why?
All right. So let's do the more formal introduction.
Introduction for you, sir.
All right. I'm Andrew Barnes, developer advocate at ServiceNow. I've been with the company for about a year. I've been in the ecosystem for about 5 years, and I've been doing enterprise applications and development and teaching developers for about 20 years. I absolutely love going into the weekend with this show. It's a little early today because we've got some things this afternoon, but we're excited to do some OAuth today. And to you, Dave.
I am Dave Slusher, also developer advocate at ServiceNow, getting close to my 6-year anniversary at ServiceNow, well past my 20-year anniversary as a developer. And did we mention developer.servicenow.com? Ding, ding. Get your New York instance. We have not got the New York shirts. I'm wearing my Madrid shirt, which I realize has kind of a greenish tint to the logo, and I almost changed it, but Andrew wanted me to keep it because
I like the psychedelic colors it makes of like the fire truck and thing behind you.
Hell's Kitchen is shining out through my chest. So anyway, so what we're going to do, we'll explain the scenario, which is we've talked and we've even shown on the show the Meetup integration app we have. So if you have go to a ServiceNow developer Meetup, we do some of the management of that thing based on an integration that we have. Go out to Meetup. This was originally built by Todd Volpe in Miami, or he's in South Florida, right?
Tampa, right?
I think he's in the South. But and then he kind of gave it to us. We expanded it. This thing has always used API key integration. And we found this out the classic way. You always found out that something had changed because Andrew looked at the data and said, wait, how come that new group didn't sync over? What's happening? So we pulled it up and we looked at the log and it says, invalid, whatever. And we looked at it.
API key, yeah.
No longer supported. Like, what?
Yeah, now, so our log said invalid API key. And then we go to the API page on meetup.com and it says, oh yeah, that method not supported anymore. OAuth 2 is the way forward.
Yesterday when we were saying, oh, what do we I don't even know if we have a topic for tomorrow. And then we said, boom, thank you, meetup.com. You just gave us a topic.
Yeah. Dave was he was like, should I fix this right this second or should I prioritize this other thing? And I was like, well, this seems awful like a thing we could just put on the show tomorrow. Yeah. Like, I know we've got a couple of meetups tonight. They'll be okay. I'll let them know. Alex says Todd is South Florida, so we are corrected. Yeah, and so I was like, this is perfectly, this is a legitimate production sort of thing. Right. You'll run into is you're either the API or the API process or the auth process has changed on one of your integrations, and you find out because it stopped working.
I've softened my position. Like yesterday, I thought, well, why did they turn this off with no notice? It is not impossible that they sent notice that we didn't see. So
entirely possible.
Entirely possible. But effectively, from our perspective, it happened suddenly and kind of without us observing a warning, whether it was sent or not. So that's what we're going to deal with. Before we do that, What are you drinking today, Andrew?
I have the finest Coca-Cola, the Cherry Coke Zero that I can acquire today.
I have my fine Dunkin' Donuts coffee as brewed by the Speedway chain of gas stations.
I
And my
also
cup, you can also see in my cup, I don't know if you noticed this right here. You know what this thing right here is? It's where my
no, it's too
thumb,
shiny.
it's where my thumb goes when I hold the cup up. It's where everything is rubbed off on the
Wow, that's impressive. I have my Dunkin' Donuts cup.
All right.
Mm.
So I'm going to go ahead and start to share. If I can find the button. And we'll go ahead and now this is we're possibly going to have to cut the screen a few times because OAuth. So
Yes.
Andrew has
and I have a new privacy screen image,
which I have not seen, and in fact I won't even see till afterwards because I can't. There's only so much.
It's a privacy shrubbery.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This is the group. This is the thing that's not syncing. So the if we go over to Studio, Andrew was laughing at my scheduled script execution, which is literally this. Oh, let me do not disturb. My boss is going to have to wait for an hour. Hold on 1 second. Let me do not disturb it. So we have literally a single line script here, or 2 lines, get groups, which is where all the integration happens. This is the integration. And you'll see that this is, we go and we do the get groups call to meetup.com. What we used to do was get our Meetup key, API key from get property and put that into the parameter. That is no longer operational. So what we do now, this is like where you go. You see API key no longer actively supported, which is means shutdown does not work at all as of this moment forward. So it's actually that seems a little bit softly worded for as that makes it sound like they're not doing anything further. What they did is actually turn it off.
They said all of your tokens are now expired. This feature does not work anymore.
So here's the documentation for this. Now, bearing in mind that I didn't really do any pre-work other than trying to load as much stuff as I could to get it queued up, so we weren't having to kind of lower the fumble. But this is where we're going. So, and sadly, I wish I knew how to turn the Zoom thing off because it's right where I need to be. Let me see if
you can drag it somewhere else, but yeah, turning it off is not an option.
I'm going to drag this slightly. I can even get a hold of the browser. Okay, there we go. So this is, I wrote this last November. Actually, was behind, so I finished it from a hotel room in Sweden. Because we found it was actually the mental model. I had no clear mental model for OAuth and how to do this. So what we're going to have to do is basically create the OAuth entity profile, which involves creating the provider, and that's where all your stuff from Meetup. This is basically the meetup.com side. We need to get their URLs and the secrets and things like that. We create the scope, which is the things we want. And then when we have this credential, that's when you get that little link that says go get the OAuth token. And our actual REST message is going to get a link to the connection and credential alias, I believe. And I could be a little bit wrong on some of that. So,
oh, that sounds right.
It's approximately right. So here is our, the REST message, which is the up top level meetup.com API, and we have various things. So we will have to do this once we create the stuff. We can reuse it, but let's just do get groups because that's kind of the first thing that we're looking at.
Yeah, without groups, you can't do anything else.
Yeah, we'll do this, and so in this message, we're going to change the authentic. Actually, what we can do, let's do this. Let's not do. We don't have to do that. Now I realize we'll do this at the very top, and then I think they all say inherit. So let me supersede what I just said. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add an OAuth profile. So on this one, I think we probably have. Okay, so we have ones that we have done for other things. So what we want to do is create a new OAuth entity profile. I'm not sure. Here is what I wish I had put in that blog post, and maybe I will edit in, is exactly what order is the best way to create these And in
I
fact,
struggle with that every time.
you'll note that we can't create the OAuth entity profile because we don't have an OAuth provider.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna walk through this thing by thing. All right. So we need an application register. So we want to connect
To a third-party OAuth provider.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm gonna have to do the privacy in a second. Let's do everything that doesn't need that first. Meetup.
Right.
Let's let Meetup integrate Meetup API. The things that we can do, and let's get these
the
out.
Token URL and the
We can get the URL, which is over here. So here's the URL. The authorization is. So the authorization URL is here. The token URL is here. I believe that thing that says token URL should be this, right? It's access token.
Looks right to me.
Yeah, and the access token is the thing like you can do. We saw this before. Like when you don't have the token URL correctly set up, you go and you authorize, and you're basically authorizing for a single time. And then every time that OAuth thing expires, then you have to go click the button to get a new token, which like in a demo thing or when you're just trying to get it set up, is doable. But then if you want this thing to live, you don't want to have to go into your server box and have to re-auth every time the token expires. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so, definitely not.
The redirect URL, this is actually on our instance. So I actually loaded it in here because I wanted to just be able to copy and paste it because I can never remember. I know it's got OAuth in the URL, something OAuth. So this is our actual. Now, bearing in mind that we're setting this up to the dev instance, okay? So there will need to be another thing later on that is, we'll need another different one on the production.
Yeah, for production.
I don't actually know what this is. Send credentials. I think this might be.
I don't mess with it unless I know what it is.
Yeah, I am definitely not touching it. I think default grant type. We want authorization code. I do believe. I believe
that seems reasonable.
All right. So now have we done? Oh, and let's do the OAuth entity scopes. Now here's where it's going to get a little dicey. Here's where I absolutely am at my least.
Do you just search for scope on this page?
I can do that. Scope.
Nope.
This is, here's the deal. This is
permission scopes. There we go. That's what we need.
Access. Yeah. So this is ageless. Ageless seems all right. It would
group. We need.
Okay, so
looks like we need basic almost.
Creating, editing, because we actually don't create anything.
The only thing we push back is RSVPs.
Creating and editing. Let's start with basic. Let's start here with the. Oh, wrong.
Well, in fact, there was just an RSVP auth type as well.
Okay. Let me look at that again. So reporting. Oh, and this is talk about. We love to talk about the namings of things, and reporting is not about reporting. It's about blocking. It's like reporting abuse.
Yeah.
That is not. If you cover up the descriptions, that is not what I think that would be.
Not least expectation for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to start with. I kind of like this ageless. I'm going to add basic and ageless because what ageless does is just, although it should work either way, we're just cutting down the number of times that we would have to.
We have to get a refresh. Yeah.
Which is just all right. So I believe this OAuth scope over here. This is their name, right? I might have to actually look at another.
Yeah, that's what I tend to have to do is look at another one. I think you could just put it in both, and that's good enough.
I'm gonna do this now
because we don't need another special name.
when we talked about the fumbling, this is kind of the fumbling, right? This is, this is not a thing that I do enough to be wildly comfortable with this.
Well, and hardly anyone has to. I mean, you set one of these up and then you don't do it again until you do your next integration, which can be a month or two later, even in a regular basis.
When a thing completely breaks. All right, I was about to drag it off and I realized, all right, it's time for you to deploy the privacy shrubbery.
Privacy shrubbery deployed.
All right, so client ID and client secret. Actually, you can undeploy it for 1 second because I'm going to show this before I actually create the thing.
Undeployed.
Undeployed. All right, so this is on the Meetup side. I have not actually created the OAuth consumer yet. So this is kind of the thing. I'm creating the Meetup side of this. So consumer name, ServiceNow, developer. Could have pre-typed this, I should have. Link to the application's public homepage. I'm just gonna, it really doesn't matter what we put here. I'm just gonna give it the whole instance URL because in a case where you were you were OAuthing to something else where people didn't know what it is, literally Andrew and I are the only people who will ever OAuth this. It doesn't matter.
It's true.
This is the redirect URI. This is the same thing as over here, I believe. This OAuth redirect to. I'm asking where. I think it kind of doesn't matter because you know what I'm saying? This might actually be harmful because I don't know if we want to do organization or not. I don't know if it. I'm going to save my own personal use because this is literally the only account that will ever use it. The one that's the one that's logged in here.
The one that's logged in is the only one that needs it.
I will fill this out. I will finish this when we do the
privacy screen's up. Finish it.
Okay. 7935.
But don't say it out loud.
That is a purpose-defeating moment. I had one of those. He crossed the senses. I can't walk into gum and pat my head. Okay. You go ahead and talk for a second while I do all of this.
All right. So this is interesting that we have to, fill this out for having to submit it. All right, good. I'm glad we had the privacy screen up because the very next screen had private data on it immediately. So that was pretty great.
And here's the thing too, is the verbiage of this screen says key and secret, which I'm pretty sure that key means client ID. But this is a confusing thing because everybody else in the world calls it client ID and client secret, right? That's what we have on our form. And right. This one doesn't, and that to me is a little bit weird and possibly.
That is a little bit weird.
It's like, why would you have different? Why would you use different terminology? That seems like.
All right, so we have.
Okay, so we have
I
done
think
that.
We're effectively past that, so privacy shrubbery can go away.
So now we're back to the point where we're going to go back and create we've got the default API default profile, which I think was created automatically when I created that record, right? If we open this, let's save that. So we've got the Meetup API default profile.
Yep.
With a Meetup API OAuth provider, then authorization grant type with the ageless and basic OAuth scope. That seems pretty correct to me.
That does seem pretty correct.
Is there anything else we have to do on that? Okay, so now, do we need a credential alias for that? We do. So somewhere in here, let me go back to my blog post because
what we created right now was a OAuth credential from our side, but we have not yet created a connections and credentials alias.
In fact, what we've created is the profile.
Profile, yeah.
We created this thing right here.
Mm-hmm.
It is the credential that is the maintainer of the actual token. Now let me go back to when I look at the rest, or when I look at I think it took my tab over when I did that. The OAuth profile is here, but not the, I wonder if we don't actually need the thing, because look over here, we got the get OAuth token. Used to configure, I'm just gonna go ahead and click this right here to see if we obtain an access token.
That should be enough to get a token, but if we want to use this anywhere else, like in Flow Designer, we're going to want to set up the connection and credentials alias.
All right, do you want to do that now, or let's go ahead. We can do it.
We're not using flows for this at the moment, so.
But I'm okay with deferring it because just in case we run, if we have extra time, we can. Let's make that a stretch goal. If everything goes so smooth,
did it say?
Oh, I haven't clicked
a message. Oh, okay, yeah. I think it'll.
Let's click it right now. See what happens.
Click it.
I should authorize. The deal being that I am not.
Are you not logged in as the?
I'm not logged in.
Account?
All right, we're gonna have to do a little bit of chicanery because I need to be in this other browser. Let me make sure that that's not on the screen. So what I want to do is load dev program dev from there.
Yep. So what we're having to do is go to so we have a separate login specifically for the admin account for the Meetup, and he needs to load that account in a browser in which he's clicking the get OAuth token because he doesn't want to authorize the API access to his personal account because that won't give him the rights he needs.
So I'm using, so I'm now I'm actually OAuthing to sign in. I think it probably won't work right away because I'm not, so now I actually have to go do a little quick other bit of business here because I need to map. This is solely to get this thing logged in. I want ServiceNow dev program to also use my account so that I can get, this is simply to get this other account logged in. All right, so now.
And if you'd move off that Google account screen, I will take the privacy filter down too.
There you go, okay. Actually, hold on 1 second. Let me
navigate somewhere else.
I'll go back to Meetup groups. All right. Thank you for that. I don't think we're exposing anything too crazy, but
sharing your email address with people is
all right. All right. So
it's
now
not always fun.
So now this is kind of also where it gets confusing, right? If we were doing everything in one account, it would be a little bit easier. But the fact that we have a separate Google account that does a lot of this other stuff that's different from my personal one, so we have kind of a joint group Google account. So
now we need to get back to the OAuth profile page so that we can click the get OAuth token.
And so here's the thing is, finding an OAuth profile from the navigator.
Go from credentials.
I think it is a credential. It's not a credential.
Nope.
Let's do application registry. I can navigate from that way.
You could also just get the the URL from the other screen. There we go. Look at that.
Okay.
And then
I want the profile. All right. Define. Now, why do I not have same button? When I was seeing the button, that was on. I was looking at the REST message. So I guess I'm going to have to open Studio in this guy. I'm not gonna bother. I can't figure out why I should. Let me just open the REST message here. The meetup.com API. At the top of the thing, it had get OAuth token. So we're back to where we wanted to be.
Yay!
This is really all we want to do. And you'll notice up here, OAuth access or refresh tokens not available. One thing I did not, I think I'm, let me zoom in on this guy because I've got a little smaller zoom on this. Is that a little more readable?
Looks fine.
Okay. We're going to click get OAuth token. What we should do, we should get the same OAuth thing. Meetup, to which we are logged in over here with bad branding. We're asking it to allow. And by the way, that you remember when it was asking us the URL before. This is the URL right here. Like in the case where it was a third party, this would be how you would kind of verify. So we're going to say allow. Now here's where the fingers are crossed.
I love crossing the fingers. Hey, look at that.
And
Refresh token.
Look at the expiration.
That's,
wait, look, the
that's
refresh
December
token.
1st.
So not the access token. That's
right.
The refresh token. Okay. So we got a refresh token. We do all that stuff. Now, so that's all we need from that guy. We are now correctly OAuth to that. So now let's go do my favorite thing over here in here.
So we've got a couple of questions on what we're doing, and I answered a little bit, but I'll expound here. So we've got an integration with Meetup.com from our ServiceNow instance, and that integration stopped working because they stopped supporting OAuth 1 access tokens and only support OAuth 2 access tokens moving forward. So we're adjusting. So first, we're setting up, the credentials from the Meetup side, and then from the ServiceNow side, to have those two systems, communicate via OAuth 2 for our authorization. And we have gotten our the token and ID generated from meetup.com. We placed it in ServiceNow. We've just acquired a current valid OAuth token and a refresh token. And now we're about to go adjust our scripts to utilize that new mechanism, which I don't think we have to do anything to our scripts.
That is so honestly, we are actually ahead of where I thought, because I thought there would be I didn't think we would actually have a valid token at 27 minutes after the hour. So what I'm going to do, so the URL name, and I'm pretty sure this URL name is the URL of our program, because Meetup, like the Meetup API, is very URL driven. Like you tell it URLs of things. It's a little, frankly, it's a little bit weird. Now, let me find in the property over here the URL, and so I believe that this is the top level. Yeah, so ServiceNow Dev Program is the URL name, which is again a misnomer to me, because it's like a portion of an URL and blah blah blah. But that is how this API is a little bit funky in some ways.
So Shane asks on our refresh, getting a new current token from the token refresh, that should happen automatically anytime that you have a valid refresh token and your access token has expired. Anytime that you reference that, so when you try and invoke a connection, it will check to see if you have a valid access token, and if not, it will request a new access token if you have a valid refresh token.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, that was the question in the interceptor, right? Was whether we were getting we were getting the access token or the refresh token. And so
now what is not automated is getting a new valid refresh token.
Right. So in December, we're going to have to do this again.
We'll have to go click the button.
We'll have to click the button every 4 months or something like that, which is
and you can adjust how long of a refresh token you're asking for, and the other side can also have a limit. So
right in our let's go in. That is actually a good question. In our OAuth provider, well, hold on, but in here you can have the link to a script, and in the script we could do some stuff like however it is that you change that, like whether it's a header or a parameter or whatever, we can have a pre-script that runs that will change the request. So if we want to have like a 1 year or a 10-year refresh token, we can request it. They are not obligated to honor.
They're not bound to give you one that is that long. Now there are some that do. For example, GitHub's refresh token is basically unlimited length.
If you ask
for it.
Okay. Any other questions before we go?
Nope.
Okay, cool. So now what we're going to do is, just because this is my kind of like my mode of going through things, is we could conceivably just fire the thing off and see what happens. But I would like to do it this way, because I just like debuggers. I'm going to be honest with I'm not blowing smoke. I just like a debugger. I just like a debugger. Okay, so I commented this out. I don't know now with it broken. I don't know if this actually is this may actually break the API if we give it the key, because we may, even though we're OAuth, it may say we don't support API key. I'd be surprised,
drop you on the ground. Yeah,
but what? In fact, I'm not even going to comment it out. I'm just going to delete it because not a thing we need. So, and again, this is a to do, which I must remember to do, is to take all of them out in this whole script. What we want to do is we're going to set a breakpoint at line 1 here of this function. I'm going to update. You'll notice, if you look at it, my favorite pattern that you can tell somebody's been around a little bit. You can tell someone who does a lot of their work in script includes by this, right? This is how you can tell.
That is the sysid of this script include, isn't it?
Sysid of our own script include, because when something tells me that there's an error in script include, boom, I'm going to do a code search and find this script include. Okay, so let's go back to groups.
Because description is one of the things that it'll actually show you. It will not show you the script include sysid native. Like that's why he put that there. It's because it will show you the description, which is usually empty, but in this case, it's the sysid of the script include.
I think it would actually be reasonable for the code search to actually look at this sysid of the thing, and you not need to do that. But that's a feature enhancement. So on this, you can see that this is actually a new, the classic ServiceNow problem is we develop on 7,000 instances. We've actually just recently coalesced everything to here. So this is as clean a debugger as you're ever going to see in the history of this. There's a single breakpoint.
Just one breakpoint in our whole.
All right, so we're going to go, and this is what we do when we do the thing. This is my fantastic schedule job. Does this, calls the script include. And the whole reason, Andrew was laughing that my schedule job is 2 lines. The whole reason it is like this is so at authoring time, I can debug this thing. I can't debug a scheduled job. I can debug a script.
Right.
So come over to
we're now going to make this, instead of be asynchronous, we're going to make this be synchronous, and therefore we can use the script debugger.
And make it my scope so that you can find it. And now I'm just going to run. Let's hit our debugger.
And that should hit our breakpoint.
I think I had somewhere in there I told it not to turn on notifications. So we're at there. So let us just go through here. We're creating the REST message. We are passing it the URL name. We're creating a REST script include. Now here's where magic should happen. We have a response body. Let's see what it is. Hey, look at that.
Hey, that looks like there's stuff in there.
Like groups.
That looks like a valid payload. And
that looks like a 200.
Yeah.
If I understand my Arabic numerals, that's a 200 status. We're not going to, so now we're going through. And, if we exited.
Yeah, I think you exited your function. So you're done and happy.
If we, but it should have been looping through. Let's go right quickly. Let's go look at the logs and see if we saw. I'm not sure, honestly, if that was correct or incorrect behavior, because we should have. Oh, look at that. It just, for some reason, I think I know what it is. It's because of the for each thing. The for each method, I think, in the debugger if you don't have an explicit breakpoint in there, because of the way it's doing that, it just kind of treats it as one line. So
I think it's the step through method that you use, whether or not it will drill down or not, because there's one that steps over and there's one that steps in.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I stepped over, but the whole thing counts as a single line because it's calling one thing in the for each. Okay, so what was the one that is new that you should have seen? Guadalajara?
Nashville,
cats. Let's see. These are all.
Yeah, Nashville.
Oh, you saw it?
No, I'm saying that's the one I want to be.
Nashville is the one you want to see.
Yeah, I
don't know that I'm seeing Nashville. I got a more direct way of doing that.
We can go straight to the.
Let's go look at the groups.
And don't be confused by seeing a Nashville, because there will be one. It'll just be bad.
Say created. No, did I pick the wrong thing? It looks like I did. Sorry about that. We did not get some.
We didn't create anything.
We didn't create anything. Now let's do this again. This time, let's actually look at. I'm going to copy and paste the whole payload. This is where now we're seeing why I debug, right? By this method. So let's go down here, back to where we get the response body.
Yep.
So we're so excited.
Here we go.
And I don't even need, I'm just going to get the whole response body. I don't need it to be, okay.
That looks like it's got all the things.
That's a lot of stuff. All right. So now, copy this. Let's create a new window in code. We'll probably see some blog posts that we do this. File. No, thank you. All right. If I tell it, I'm just going to save this temporarily as JavaScript so that I can beautify it.
Okay.
Put it in my favorite thing, my transient directory, which has a cron job that deletes things after 2 weeks. Once I did that, actually looked at it, automatically rewrapped them a little bit. So now let's look for Nashville. Nashville is not in this
results. Payload. Okay, why not?
Let's go.
We are clearly getting our events from meetup.com.
Let's go. So we're doing the groups. We'll go back over here. We do our groups over here. We're getting 52 groups from the API. If we look, this is the.
By the way, you're really talented by leaving that on the screen.
Leaving which on the screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go cut that stuff out. But we're gonna need to generate a new.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Oh, when you were on the meetup page, you had the client secret and client ID.
Okay.
Visible. That's fine. We'll cut it out and we'll generate a new one.
Okay. And that's to the dev one anyways, but we're gonna actually have to do that whole process again for one that's production, because it has those URL, like the callback URL and everything,
right.
R to the dev program dev. So over here in meetup.com, it says we had 51 chapters.
And how many did you retrieve?
52, I thought. Well, let's look at created data. The other way. Guadalajara. We don't have a Nashville chapter over here. That's part of the problem.
Really?
Guadalajara is the newest one.
Well, that will explain it then, but
all right. So that's not, so now that we've got that, let's go ahead. We got plenty of time. Let us go. We're not going to worry about the groups. Let us now go over here. Let's do the same process. Just go ahead and let that guy run. Let's go ahead and do the same process for the syncing of events, because that's a little more, that is much more fluid. So we'll come over here, Studio.
Oh, well, that makes sense why. Okay. So I figured out why it's not there.
Okay.
Because it's not in our group.
That would make sense. So you'll notice actually.
So things are working properly.
This is something. This is where we're exposing a horrible secret here, which is that we have this extremely ugly way of not triggering the meetup rate limiting. which is this awful busy wait. We are literally like consuming an entire thread on this thing, just checking the time in order to busy wait, because there's not a way to wait in the JavaScript engine that we have. So one of the things that would actually make this a reasonable candidate for moving the whole thing to a flow, because if we do that, then that has the retry policy.
Right. That would be
the only way we can get that retry policy. That retry policy doesn't exist in general REST messages. It only exists in the flow executed retry. So that might be a candidate for the next show, the next general purpose show, is to move this thing to a flow. And I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah, and then we can show off the retry policies, which those are new in Integration Hub. So we had a question about the credential setup, and I think I'll just say we did that earlier in the show, and you can just scrub back to the beginning for the walking through how we set up the credentials.
Yeah, and the one thing which we always forget about is you need to do, like the thing from the REST message that you click to is the profile. But the profile has a reference to a provider. So the provider is the first thing to be created. And I can never, for the life of me, remember where I start when it's time to start doing this. What is the bottom turtle in the giant turtles holding the world? And it is the OAuth provider, then the OAuth profile. Then if you were creating a credential alias, you would create that, because there's a chain of references of each of those things. So the previous thing has to exist before you can call that.
Yeah, I never started the right one either. I started the one I need, and then I just keep drilling in until I get to the one it needs me to create first.
Pop them off the stack one at a time until you get back to where you
Every single time.
All right, so we're going to do this. And so we don't have the sweet one-liner here. So we're just going to do this exact same script. Because of the debugger, this will actually help us, because we will do less busy waiting. So I'm going to come over to Explorer.
Yeah, I don't even think we need the debugger. I think we just run the things.
Just run the thing and see if it does.
I mean, we've got valid OAuth too, and so
true.
all of our stuff should just work now.
So you want to say turn the debugger off and run it from here?
Yeah, I say just.
I can do that. Let's do that. Let's run it, and we should get the output over here. I don't believe. Do we want to just throw a thing in here to output something? Let's just say.
Yeah.
Let's just say. If I do a GS log, it will show up over the right.
Yes, it should show up over there.
And GS log. What's the one I can't? GS log should be right. Correct.
If we're in a scope, you can't use log.
It's
throw info message.
Info. GS info.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just do that so we see a list of like things that looped over. All
Lovely.
Right, so we're gonna run this, and bear in mind we did not touch that REST message, right?
We did not.
We only did the parent thing, and we set that to have OAuth. So this should just work. Sleep is not a function. Oh.
Yeah, it should be gs.sleep, not sleep.
We're actually calling. Is there a gs.sleep?
Yes.
Let's try that. I think this
and it's not allowed in your scope.
Here's what we're going to do. We're just going to not do that. We may hit the rate limit. If so, so be it. Let's run it until we hit the rate limit. Now this looks like something's happening.
It does look like something's happening.
And in fact, while that's running, let's go ahead and look at the log, see if we can see activity down here. Am I not looking at the right place? Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Now,
there we go.
We're seeing effectively the same stuff. So if we go back over here, we should see like the events from last night. Wait, what am I doing? Meetup. And if we look at events, all Meetup events, and let's do, again, let's do created by, not created by, created, descending. So we should have a number of them that were just created. 823, look at that. Amsterdam, which I know, we got the email, they just scheduled this one We should see past. Where's the ones that happened? The last one happened.
Yeah, the created on seems right. I like it.
823, 823, 7. Okay, this looks right. So literally, without touching a thing in the sub things, the sub, the sub methods, we created it at the API level. We told it to use this meetup, and then without touching
since all of our lower HTTP method,
yeah. So like get events. Let's look at that one. Inherit from parent. Inherit from parent. You set it on the parent. They all just work. Beautiful. So beautiful. We put this thing back in production, and then we'll have to create a new profile in production. We'll have to create a new basically application on Meetup side. So we'll have one for dev program dev. We'll have one for dev program resources, which is the production server. So we'll have to effectively duplicate some of this work. Like this is not a thing we can just push where we want it to go. So we'll basically do it again in production, but
right. And part of that is by design, that the moving of credentials and connections between instances can be detrimental because you, in many cases, they're going to be very different credentials, different access levels, different endpoints.
Right. Your subprod is probably hitting it's not hitting the live resource, right? You're not creating live integrations in your production thing as you're testing your subprods. So
in our case, we're hitting our production endpoint in our subprod, but that's because that's the only choice we have. But
if we had
internal resources,
right,
that is likely not the case.
If we had a sandbox Meetup account with our same data in it, or any data in it, that's actually what we would use here. And then we would recreate the whole thing again, to the production one on the production side. That would actually be. So I'm trying to think of places that have that, like PayPal has, a sandbox of production or things like that. So, places where that's available to you. I know Okta has a production and a subprod type thing, like a UAT style thing. So if we had that, that's what we would use. We're doing your favorite thing. We're testing in production because that's all we got here. Okay. Cool. What do we want to go ahead and create the credential that we deferred?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. We can show that off real quick.
This was actually
then we'll be set up for flow when we're ready.
Yeah. So bear in mind, we spent roughly 40 minutes, and we got not just one method, but we got every method. So that was actually, I would have lost.
I wasn't sure that we were going to get a successful OAuth 2 token working for all of our things during the show.
During the hour, yeah. So actually, I think there's a little bit of a data model cleanup at New York. I think we actually fumbled a little harder, say London before, but it was better than I thought. So let's go ahead and we create that from here. Credential connection.
Yeah, and this should be relatively more straightforward because most of the underlying things are going to exist.
Now this thing says Flow Designer. It's there because Flow Designer uses it in Studio, but I believe that we're creating one on the general. We're creating it in the connection and credential, which is not owned by.
It's that Flow Designer owns that.
In Studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where it lives hierarchically in Studio.
Let's call it Meet. Here's where the naming is really a problem. You got the OAuth profile and you got the credential alias that is literally just the OAuth profile. It's like, well, how do you name them different and what's the... Well, I'm just going to call it Meetup Integration. Probably the same thing.
Yeah, seems fine to me.
Now, is it going to let me pick the... It's going to go ahead and submit. This might be one where you don't pick the thing until after you submit it. Alias name can only contain...
Underscores. Throw in an underscore, no spaces.
That I can do. Okay. Now
we'll create a... So what's the connection type choices that we have?
Connection or just credential. We may just want credential because we're not defining...
Yeah, I think we're just doing a credential, right? Because
connection is where you would define like the endpoints.
If we needed a different endpoint for different purposes, but we don't.
right, because we're using it with the REST messages, we kind of already have that. So it's sort of superfluous.
You'd need to save first.
Down to say. Let's do that. See, that to me, I wish those things like automatically open a new tab. Okay, OAuth 2 credential. OAuth profile.
We already have that, which is great. No mid server needed.
Now we have yet another thing
that we're going to name the same thing.
And multiple different, I guess, here's my mistake. I called it API and I've called it integration at some point. Let's just call it Meetup API everywhere. I can even change the other one. Why am I back here?
Yeah, that doesn't seem, taking you back to the interceptor doesn't seem logical.
This also doesn't seem logical, so let's do this.
Yeah. Go to the credential that we created.
There.
Is it not under connections and credentials? Yeah, there we go. Okay,
so there's our connection.
It's created. Yay.
Created. We've got our OAuth. Our OAuth profile is in here, and it looks to me like everything's done.
I think we're set.
We could create a. I think it's probably too long, to do it in the roughly 8-ish minutes that we have left. But I mean, we could roll over, but I don't. I honestly.
Nope. I'm ended on a victory on this one.
Yes, and that's exactly what I thought. It's like, why would I? Why? And a victory state. Why would I consider giving myself another chance to fail?
All the goals that we wanted to accomplish have been accomplished.
so now, really and truly, in just a couple minutes, we can get. So I'm trying to think: is there anything on this dev program dev that we would actually push? Probably not. I think what we would do is
because none of what we did is something that we want to move to another instance. Because we're gonna create a new credential alias, and then drill down and create all of the sub things that we just created. And it will be really fast because we know what they are now and we know how to make it work. But yeah, this will be really straightforward. The only thing cleanup wise is to go to our script include and remove any of those references to that property of the key.
Actually,
and that is something that we could promote.
Let's do one thing right quickly. I want to put the key back.
Okay.
And let's see if it breaks it.
All right.
This is just.
You can just roll back your version of your script include.
Good. Let's go back to this.
Leave page. It's down at the bottom. Scroll the other way. Now I'm saying scroll outside of this payload window. Scroll down.
I'll revert to this version.
Revert.
All right. So let's go ahead and let's just do this one time. And this one time, and I'm just curious to see whether it breaks or not. So we want to clean it up just to have it cleaned up. But let's run this Joker and see, does it give me that error? Because I'm just curious whether there are API gaps on that or not. Let me go turn my debugger back on. Let's run this. We really are just looking to see.
Does it throw up or not?
Get a 200, we get a not 200. Response, body. Nah, so it's not even, it does not break.
It's not even required to clean up that because they're just ignoring it.
Fine either way. So we can get out of it. I mean, there's no point in keeping useless code around. But it is not my worry when I was taking out before. My worry was that we had actively harmful code in there that would take make the thing break because we were sending that parameter, but that's not the case. So all right, I'm going to stop the share. I think we're good on everything. Turn my video back on. All right, that is so. It's nice when you do an OAuth thing to kind of have pleasant surprise. So it was faster than I thought it was going to be. It was not nearly as I was expecting more fumble. I was expecting actually we'd have at least one appeal to the chat to say, I don't know, like what exactly am I doing here? Can I find the thing? To not to toot my own horn too hard, but like that one diagram that I was showing you from that blog post, I kind of had to reverse engineer that myself because it was tricky. And I wrote that blog post as much, peek behind the curtains, I wrote as much for myself as for the entire community, because so often I had to get lost and fight my way out of where in the hell I was in the stack of credentials and whatever. So like that one diagram to me like helps, like changed that, because I'm like, okay, I'm here, I need to be here. There's 2 steps between me. Like just getting yourself a map.
Yeah, building that diagram was really helpful for you, I think. And it's important when you're trying to make a mental model. If you can't seem to make all the make a representation of that model so that you can see it and absorb it. I think the documentation on ACLs has got 2 of the best mental model things for ACLs. Mm-hmm. That I refer to those things all the time when I'm trying to teach someone new the ACL stuff. I'm like, the first thing is you just take these 2 images and then you marry these things, because these will help you for the rest of your career doing ACLs with ServiceNow stuff, because they explain it so much in detail without overwhelming you, just because of the way that those images are laid out so well. So it makes sense that you made that for yourself, and is a good suggestion for anyone when they're trying to build a mental model is diagram it, write it down so that you can see it, and then you can also share it with others. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a blog, but you can throw it up on the community somewhere and say, hey, I made this mental model for myself. Here, someone else can have it too.
Alrighty. Do we have anything remaining from the chat? Any old business we want to close on before we finish?
I don't think so. I just love your Madrid shirt today. Is tripping me out. I am so glad we didn't have you change that, because it's been entertaining me.
It started as a bug and it became a feature. Okay.
I love that. My soda was delicious and is very much gone. As always, visit developer.servicenow.com to get your instances, get the API documentation, reach out to the community. You can, New York early access is coming up on a close now, and we're going to move into general availability relatively soon. I know some folks are already, getting those in their subprods and learning that. So we're excited. And the features in New York will continue to show off more of those things over the next coming months, especially for developers. There's lots of improvements for developers in New York, so that we get excited about. Like in Flow Designer, we said we were going to show off those retry policies in Integration Hub. So that'll be coming up. Otherwise, I know there's a bunch of events around the world now at work forums that are coming to a city near you. Go to those if you're interested. There's really good content there. Gets you hands-on with ServiceNow stuff in workshop styles. There'll be breakout sessions. Those are good events. Check those. I don't know the best way. I know they're on the ServiceNow.com site. I just don't remember path to get there.
On the developer portal, there's an events tab.
Oh, are they on there as well? Awesome.
I don't know if every Now at Work is there yet. Some are just getting scheduled, but they will all be there. That's the place you can go to.
Well, then that's the place. Again, is developer.servicenow.com. That event page. Woo.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Why would you go anywhere else?
Why would you go anywhere else? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.